Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how new car inventories are still on the rise and how they just hit historic highs. Before we get in this video though, as always, if you're going to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you're going to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So this report comes from Cox Automotive, and they state that new car inventory is the highest that it has been in 2 years. The last time the inventory was anywhere around this was, well, 2021. And the thing that I need to mention is they're talking about the beginning of 21. And if you don't remember, the beginning of 21 was just before the buying frenzy started. Most of the crazy buying that we associate with the pandemic happened at the end of 2021 and at the beginning of 2022. But anyways, let's get into the numbers. So at the end of last month, the amount of new car inventory stood at 1.89 million units, 56 days supply, and the average listing price for these new cars was just under $47,000. So to put these numbers into perspective, last year there was 780,000 fewer vehicles, new vehicles for sale at the same time last year, so 70% less than what we have today. Now, the thing that's pretty fascinating is although we have more inventory, the day supply number, again, 56, which is below what the industry considers normal, which is a 60-day supply, is actually slightly less than what we saw in February. So we actually have a slightly smaller day supply, even though we actually have more inventory than February. February had about 1.8 million vehicles available. So what this means is that although there are more new vehicles on the ground, new vehicles are selling at a quicker rate. Now, the biggest reason as to why new vehicles are selling at a quicker rate is, well, first off, new vehicle prices are starting to finally come down in a meaningful way. And then on top of that, fleet sales are still just absolutely exploding. Like every single month, fleet sales just continue to increase across the board. And so you have this segment of purchasing that's happening that is just exploding. And then for the regular consumers, well, vehicles are becoming more and more affordable. So you have more and more people kind of jumping back into the market. And speaking of sales, it's estimated there will be almost 15 million new vehicles sold in 2023 since, again, the sales rate keeps increasing. I mean, March saw over 1 million new vehicles sold. I mean, that's massive. The last time that there was that many vehicles sold in a 30-day period was September of 2021 when there was a huge buying frenzy back then. Now, if you're wondering how this all stands like historically prior to the pandemic, well, in March of 2019, the amount of new vehicles available was 3.87 million vehicles, so way more than we have today, like twice as much. And then there was a 94-day supply. So the sales rate was higher back then, but the supply was substantially higher than what we have today. And so this shows that we aren't quite at what we were prior to the pandemic. But again, what a lot of people are saying is that the car market is where it should be. Now, diving a little bit deeper into the numbers, there is a difference between the luxury and non-luxury market, and this is pretty fascinating, at least to me. So there is 1.6 million new non-luxury vehicles available right now. Luxury, just under 300,000 units. But the thing that's interesting is the day supply. So non-luxury has a day supply of 55 days, whereas luxury has a day supply of 60 days. And so this is showing that now, like, non-luxury cars are becoming more popular, right? Their day supply is tighter, whereas luxury cars, their day supply is increasing. And so they're becoming less popular. We're finally starting to see a shift away from the more expensive vehicles. Well, kind of. And the reason why I say kind of is when you dive into individual price categories, this really tells the story of what's happening within the automotive world. So cars that are priced at under $20,000 have a day supply of only 24 days. $20,000 to $30,000, 40-day supply. $30,000 to $40,000, 43-day supply. $40,000 to $50,000, 54-day supply. So far, every single category that I've mentioned is below the average day supply that we currently have. So all of those cars are selling quite well. So basically everything under $50,000. Now, $50,000 to $60,000 category, 69-day supply, huge jump. And then $60,000 to $80,000 category, 82-day supply, another really big jump. But once you jump over $80,000, the day supply drops back down to a 59-day supply. So this literally reiterates what I have been saying for like months and months on end. affordable cars are really hot. A lot of people are going and purchasing them. And then the really high line stuff, the expensive vehicles, right? Those are still selling because people that have money still have money and they're still willing to pay price premiums for these vehicles. And so they're keeping inventory tight. But then vehicles that are considered more premium that a regular person would buy, they're not selling because the prices are too high. The manufacturers that are selling these vehicles need to bring the prices back down so that the regular people that normally purchase those vehicles, well, they can afford them. Now, the last thing that I want to go over before we cap things off with today's video is the day supply by different manufacturers, because this is quite fascinating. So Toyota, Kia, Lexus, Lotus, Honda, and Subaru still are pretty dang constrained when it comes to supply, and Lotus is an interesting one because that's such a low volume manufacturer. But regardless, they're still really constrained. However, I do want to say anecdotally, I've noticed that Kia and Lexus dealers have gotten like a lot of unsold inventory recently. And so I think the next report is going to show massive amounts of supply or a massive increase with supply. The next ones that are still pretty constrained, BMW, Land Rover, Mini, Hyundai, Volkswagen. So that kind of makes sense. The national average, again, right, it's just under 60 days supply. Manufacturer I find interesting is Porsche. So they are just over the national average. They used to be really constrained, but now their supply is increased. And I think a big part of that is, frankly, production. And then if we go to the complete opposite end of the table, so these are manufacturers that have really big day supplies, right? They're not selling as well. Ram, Buick, Jeep, Chrysler, Jaguar, Infiniti, Dodge, Lincoln. They're all, most of those are all over 100 days in terms of the supply that they currently have. And so you can see that there's still like this really big split in the automotive industry where you have some manufacturers that have no inventory, and then you have other manufacturers that have inventory that is even higher than what it was prior to the pandemic in terms of the days supply number. Because again, the national average back then was around 90 days. And so when you have manufacturers that have over 100 days worth of supply, then yeah, they're in a pretty interesting place. And now that we've gone over the data, let's talk about what this actually means for the car market. So you might not like what I'm about to say, but this shows that the car market is starting to quote unquote normalize, at least to this new normal, the normal where we have much higher prices than what we had in the past, and frankly, a tighter day supply compared to what we had in the past. Now, I do think that the day supply number is definitely going to increase as more of these reports get built out and as the months progress throughout the 2023 sales year. I just don't think that we're necessarily going to get back up to that 90-day supply we had prior to the pandemic, because I can tell you, as someone who sold cars in 2019, that is not a car market that you want to have happen. I mean, if you're a customer, it's great, but if you're a dealership, it's not great, because I remember it was so difficult to sell cars because people were shopping like crazy, because like it was just like you had to discount everything a massive amount just to sell anything because everyone just had so many vehicles. But aside from that, you can just tell that all these manufacturers and the overall car market is just trying to figure itself out. Like everyone's trying to figure out, okay, what's the best pricing for my product? How much should I build? I mean, the report states like GM, for example, shut down manufacturing for a couple weeks with our trucks to maintain ideal inventory levels with those trucks. And so you can see that manufacturers are acting in real time to try to figure out the situation. Something that I can tell you anecdotally that I recently discovered that I'm going to be making a dedicated video about, because it is pretty crazy, is you have manufacturers that are like fully shifting their production towards vehicles that they know they can sell. And this is something that I have said that manufacturers should do for a long time, and now they're finally doing it. A good example is Ford with Broncos and Raptors. All I can say, I can't say where I got this information from, but all I can say is that Ford handed out a boatload of allocation for both of those types of vehicles recently, like extra allocation, way more than dealers expected. And they basically pulled back on allocation on regular vehicles, like a regular F-150, for example, because, well, Ford knows that if they build those vehicles, they'll sell them, and they don't have to put rebates or discounts on them. And I think that we're going to see more and more of this as the 2023 sales year progresses, where automakers are going to go, okay, we have this amount of supply to build this amount of vehicles. Let's build the vehicles that are still going to sell, and let's just keep the supply where it's at with the vehicles that currently aren't selling to make it so that we don't have to discount them more than we're already having to discount them. Again, the market's trying to figure itself out. I'll dive a little bit deeper into that in a newer video. But let me know what you guys think about this market trend with these inventories increasing. What do you think is going to happen, and where do you think the sweet spot is going to be? Do you think it's going to be a 60-day supply like all the experts say, or do you think it's going to end up being higher? If you're wondering my guess, I think it'll end up being a little bit higher. I'll see ya.